Hello. In this session, we want to look at severe service and off-road vehicles. That's a session still in our continuing treatment of ground vehicle aerodynamics. We'll look at severe service and off-road vehicles. Well, severe service vehicles, they are essentially vehicles that are used in unusual and many times intermittent operations, very demanding operations, such as in the construction and in the minefield. Refuse trucks are severe service, farm machinery, trucks used in utility services. They go through the rough and tumble. Off-road trucks spend very brief time on the highway. That's usually when they're on transit or on the main roads. They include carts, which are used in large manufacturing plants. They're usually in-house and don't go outside the plant. Then we have farm machinery and some construction vehicles. Some vehicles qualify both as severe service and off-road. Sometimes there's a fine line, sometimes there's overlap, but they are a special brand of vehicles, not necessarily often because of what they look like, but because of the function that they need to perform, and that function defines them actually usually more than a design feature that we would otherwise have seen. Severe service and off-road vehicles typically operate at low speeds, below the speed within which benefits of aerodynamic improvement are found to be significant, and they usually have a considerable downtime, and these make it unappealing generally for manufacturers to pay attention to the aerodynamics of such vehicles. But let's look at construction trucks first. Construction trucks, for example, amongst severe service vehicles, they are usually rugged. They have to be because of the duty they need to perform. They are primarily utility-based, not so much aesthetics, although these days a little bit of aesthetics is added to just about every design. But primarily, they are rugged, functional vehicles. Aerodynamic considerations would therefore be viewed merely as some aesthetic enhancement, which is irrelevant for the atmosphere of use, again, functionality. However, opportunities still exist for aerodynamic improvement in the front and on the sides. One of the things we'll find out as we go through this topic is most of the improvements that need to be done, aerodynamic improvements to enhance aerodynamics, perhaps to a smaller extent than we would have for general utility vehicle like cars, passenger cars, and trucks that are used every day. But still some gain, and every little gain matters, especially considering the cost of gasoline. So it's important, therefore, to emphasize that opportunities still exist for aerodynamic improvement in severe service vehicles, and those opportunities are usually found mostly in the front, like 80% to 85% of the opportunities for aerodynamic improvement are found in the front and a little bit on the side. And many severe service vehicles severe service and off-road vehicles, many of them are not the typical three-part auto that we looked at earlier on when we were looking at the parts of the automobile. They are mostly essentially divided into two parts, the leading portion and the rear portion. And it's the leading portion that we have most of the improvement that needs to be made to the vehicle, again about 80–85%, and some additional improvement that can be made. That is aerodynamic improvement will be made on the side. Some of the improvements for the front design can be made when we consider that your typical severe service vehicle, construction truck, for example, is bluff. It's a bluff body design. It's just like a flat piece of material smashing into the wind. We could say, well, it's doing it at low speed. No matter how low the speed is, as long as it's smashing into the air, which is more or less what you expect of a bluff body or box design, there is still something that can be gained, something substantial, by making some aerodynamic improvements on those. So aerodynamic profiling of the front section will reduce the drag. Studies have shown that the aerodynamic profiling of the front section of construction trucks of the type that we have here will improve the drag coefficient by up to 0.08, and that is something substantial. Also, a smooth transition from the leading edge into the bottom of the cabin just before the front axle will reduce the truck underbody drag. What we mean by that is, this is the leading edge here. Now, it's kind of very sharp. It's kind of at an angle. If we look at, if this represents the leading edge and this represents the rear section, that's what we have here. So if that is profiled such that instead of like this, we have it something like this. That would be an improvement that will reduce the drag so that the air here can follow a smooth path, and there will be a reduction in drag for that. And as far as the aerodynamic profiling of the front section, instead of what we have here, which again is something like this, and at an angle, if we have a larger radius, it would be a face like that. Certainly something of this form, is preferred to one like this, and this is typically what you have for these types of vehicles. This is what we want to reduce the drag. The front edges are usually rounded, as we've indicated, but the rounding is so small. Again, this is a very small radius. It's rounded with a small radius. You want to give it a larger radius, and with such a larger radius, there is the prevention or the reduction of flow separation at the fascia. So those are benefits that can be gained with even severe service vehicles at the relatively low speed at which they operate. Now, some of the improvements that can be made to the side, it's not so much, there isn't so much that can be made to the side as compared with the front. Again, a large bulk of the improvement, aerodynamic improvement that can be made is found in the front. But in the side design, we need to first realize, like, why would I bother making an improvement on it? Well, the drag contributions by the side of a severe service vehicle can be nearly as much as that from the leading edge. Usually it's not as much, but it can ramp up there. It can be of that same order, depending on the type of side that you have. One of the things typical of the severe service vehicle is, if let's look at the plan form. It may not be shown very clearly here, but this will be let's even say the front section has aerodynamic profile into it, and you have an attachment like this at the back, which is represented by this. So the wind coming from here goes on and then hits this and hits that. So, and you have the deflection of flow, and you have some going to the side here and some going to the side there. You have all those events occurring because typically in the severe service vehicles, the attachment is wider than the engine compartment or than the cabin. And so when we keep that in mind, we will see the reason to look at making improvements to the side. Now, garbage collection trucks. Well, there are the long haulers. Other than that, other than the long haulers, garbage collection trucks typically make frequent stops. Every 2 or 3 minutes they're stopping. So there isn't enough incentive to develop a sustaining, there isn't enough incentive to do an aerodynamic improvement because the time in transit is not enough for initiate airflow to develop a sustaining profile. Yet there's improvement that can be gained. Just like construction trucks, attachments are all around the main vehicle. This is the cabin here, and these are attachments at the back. There's an attachment on the front. There's some other material up front here. Just attachments everywhere, which we really can't control because, again, the primary function of these vehicles are utility, and those attachments are needed. And it's very unlikely that those attachments are going to be designed with aerodynamic consideration. Most garbage trucks are rear loaders. There are front loaders amongst them, and there are top loaders, but the very common ones are rear loaders. They generally travel below 30 miles an hour. Again, quite a low speed. And they do that most of the time that they are in use. But a smooth transition of an installed underbody panel from the leading edge that's just right behind the bumper in the longitudinal position of the car of the truck will reduce the underbody drag. This you have the leading section, and you have the attachment like that, and the leading section actually comes generally down there. You have the driver's seat there, and in this is where all kinds of paraphernalia, materials, and unfriendly designs, that's aerodynamically unfriendly designs are attached. But if this is changed from this format to something like this, and when, again, many times there are all kinds of material under there, if some kind of underbody panel is installed, even though there are wires and tubes and channels all over here, some underbody panel that's, if it's installed here, the flow will come from the leading edge. This is the vehicle going this way. The vehicle is going this way. The flow will come from the leading edge, and instead of hitting this, it will just follow this path and follow the path under the panel that is put there. And therefore, all these wires and paraphernalia attached under the vehicle will be prevented, will be excluded from contacting the airflow under the airflow in the underbody of the collection of the garbage collection truck. So a major area, and As far as I know, work is not being done in this area. If it is, it's not something that is of substantial public awareness. But that would be in the underbody for garbage trucks. In the underbody is where a lot of improvement, aerodynamic improvement, can be obtained. And I expect that improvement will be substantial enough to make it worth it for these types of vehicles. Then we have farm machinery. Farm machinery, again, they're designed almost exclusively for functional purpose. Aerodynamic gain is possible in the tractor design. Again, it's going to be in the front part, not in the attachment in the back. The near flat front of the engine cowling, which is the common design for tractors, as we can see here, it's more or less near flat front. That design contributes to drag. The square box glass cabin design, which is what we have here, these are all drag contributors. If we have a pullback of the windshield top, this is the windshield here. If instead of, let me represent this. This is the engine cowling more or less, and this is the windshield, the side view. If we look at the side view, if we pull back the windshield top so that instead of what we have here for the windshield, we have something like this. Yeah, like that. So we have this shape rather than this, which is the traditional shape. Then we can gain some improvement in the aerodynamics of this kind of vehicle. There are little things that can be done which add up to an improved aerodynamic performance. Well, for farm machinery especially, soiling is an ever-present part of the vehicle. And there are any aerodynamic benefits obtained by modifying the sides or the cabin, as we've described here. Any such gains that are made may be nullified by the drag incurred due to soiling. So I suppose this could be a discouragement to even make any improvement, but nonetheless, the soiling may not be so great as to neutralize the drag. Besides, when they are washed from time to time, the benefit of the aerodynamic improvement is realized. Then we have the in-plant cart, which many times hardly sees the outside. Common in-plant carts are designed like jumbo matchboxes with slight rounding at the leading edge. This is the leading edge, very tiny rounding, almost like a square, very tiny, probably much more for safety. The rounding is much more for safety than for anything else. So you have a leading edge that is kind of just like this, which is very small, rounding, small radius. The flat front contributes significantly to drag, even in in-plant speeds, which are 10 to 20 miles per hour generally. A rounding of the front improves the flow of air at the leading edge, and when the air flow is improved, certainly we'll have a reduction in drag. For this one, so this could be given more round to the back here, and here, which is generally at an angle like that, can be changed to something like that. So these are the different areas in which improvement can be made to equipment like this. The significance of such improvements is in the downtime of a battery-run cart. When you make such improvement, there will be less drag reduction. Therefore, there will be less power put into the functioning of the cart, because when there's less drag incurrence, there will be more of the battery power will be used over a longer time. That is, a given battery power will last a longer time than without such improvements, and that's a benefit that cannot be ignored. Also, less time is used in powering the battery. Therefore, there's less pollution that is incurred. The benefits look relatively small compared with family vehicles, but they are there, and those little benefits add up, and they become significant, especially if, for example, we're talking about a plant that has about 20 carts, or even 5 carts like this. You consider the benefit that you have in one vehicle and multiply it by the number of such vehicles that you have, and before you know it, it adds up. Many vehicles which function as severe service, as we mentioned earlier, they're generally not designed from scratch as exclusively severe service. What determines whether they're severe service is the function that they need to perform. So the vehicle that's used by everybody else, at least from its aerodynamic perspective, we don't see what separates it or what distinguishes it as a severe service vehicle. So the main body profile of a severe service vehicle is not necessarily different from that of non-severe service vehicle. The things that are different are the kinds of attachments, whether the loader, the cart, the trailer, the farm tool, those different things that are added in the things that are housed in the cabin. And unfortunately, it's quite unlikely that aerodynamic improvements are made to those attachments. But in the main vehicle, we can still make aerodynamic improvements, at least to those areas where the attachments will not be, because there is no point putting making aerodynamic improvements in the areas where the attachment will go, because the attachments will undo the aerodynamic benefits that we have. So it becomes a case-by-case design for aerodynamic improvement. Again, when we look at off-road vehicles, some of them, we just talked about severe service vehicles and off-road being essentially two parts, the cabin or the front section, and the attachment or the truck, the trailer that follows it in the back. But even beyond that, some off-road vehicles can't even be separated into two parts as we have done. So we start off with a car having 3 main parts, and then we have tractor trailers and severe service vehicles and being essentially 2 parts. Now we're down to something like an armored tank. Some of the implant carts or tuggers that we use, they are like one piece, essentially one piece. Look at this, for example. It's difficult to say which part is one section and the other are separate from the one. So a number of off-road vehicles essentially come in one solid piece. They are parts, but they are not easily distinguishable or separate. So they can't easily be separated into the distinct parts as we had done with a car. So these are realities of some off-road vehicles. Let's look at sectional aerodynamic design for severe service vehicles. The most of the improvement that we can bring to such vehicles is found in the engine section, and in the engine section or in the cabin section. Depends on if it's cabin over engine or cabin behind engine. If it's cabin over engine, then it's essentially the cabin section, because the engine is right there. The engine is actually covered under the cabin. And if it's cabin behind engine, then we can make improvements in the engine section and in the cabin section, which both together form the front piece. We really can't do a lot with the attachments, again, because they are functional tools, and it's quite unlikely that aerodynamic design is given to such tools, especially since they are used in other areas beyond the vehicle in which they are installed. Again, we talked about the types of engine before. If the engine is in the front of the cabin, we have opportunities for aerodynamic improvement. That's the hood, the cabin, and the front underbody. We round off the leading edge and the sides of the hood. We're raising the hood on a slow slant. Again, that's from the hood windshield interface to the hood roof interface. We have a slant that gradually goes backward, and that will reduce the drag. That certainly is a preferred design, to having an almost perpendicular hood, which is common, especially with farm machinery. When engine is placed under the hood, when the engine is placed under the driver's seat, we essentially are treating the cabin, which covers the hood. Okay? And so the aerodynamic improvement is focused on the cabin and on the underbody, as that wraps the engine right under the driver in the cabin. Underbody design of the cabin is generally small in length compared to the length of the attachment, but because of its location, the strategic location that the underbody of the leading edge has, it influences the rest of the body flow, of the underbody flow, way beyond its boundaries. So a lot of attention need to be put into the nose of the leading edge, so that we can ensure a smooth transition of the flow. With a smooth transition from the leading edge, there will still be obstacles in the trailing edge, but they are not as serious as a rough, turbulent flow detached right from the leading edge coming into the rear. So improvements need to be considered, particularly in the underbody design of such vehicles. There's not much that's being done in that area right now, and that will very likely be an area that will be looked at as we're looking at every little opportunity to reduce drag in vehicles. Well, most civil service vehicles, the soiling is part of the things to expect in them. It's almost inevitable that there will be soiling. So even though there's a desirable reduction, there's a desire to reduce soiling, it's probably unlikely, at least in the attachment. We need to look at least reducing the soiling in again, back to the leading portion, into the cabin, the leading section. So effort towards reduction of soiling is focused on the front section. It's focused on the front section of the civil service vehicle. Soiling has to drag, so because soiling builds over time, so does drag. The practical approach to reducing soiling is essentially to wash the vehicle at frequent intervals. So that's all we're going to touch on the treatment of severe service vehicles.